The Toronto Raptors are making moves as Masai Ujiri ended up cutting 3 players over this weekend and ended up signing 5 guys to Exhibit 10 contracts. So we'll break down all those moves in this video. Additionally, we have an update on Fred VanVleet's and Pascal Siakam's contract situation, as the deadline for them to be extended is tonight. So we'll discuss that whole situation, and Christain Koloko potentially playing a chunk of this season in the G League. So a bunch of stuff to break down. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Dive, just breaking down the latest Toronto Raptors news. And folks, season's back in 2 days. First game for the Raptors is on Wednesday, so if you guys want to stay up to date on everything happening around the Toronto Raptors for this upcoming season, subscribe to the Raptors Digest. It helps us out big time. But let's dive into that news. And the first thing we're discussing is the Toronto Raptors signing 5 players and cutting 3. Now, a huge topic of discussion this summer was who's going to make those deep bench roster positions. It was a debate for most of the past month. Juancho, Delano, Justin Champagnie, DJ Wilson, Justin Jackson, Gabe Brown. Which 3 of those guys will make the roster? Now, about a week ago, we got essentially confirmation Juancho wasn't at risk of getting cut. And with Delano Banton's performance throughout the preseason, he essentially ensured himself a roster spot. But really until the last game, and maybe not in the Raptors front office because DJ Wilson didn't play on that game Friday night, but it was a real debate about who would be making that final roster spot between Champagnie, DJ Wilson, and Justin Jackson. Now, we did actually get to react to this decision live in the post game of that Raptors Celtics game. So if you want my raw reaction to this first little bit of news, the 3 guys we cut, then definitely check out that video. But I'll summarize in a news video here because that was locked deep in that 53 minutes into that podcast. But the official end to this drama has been put at Josh Jackson, DJ Wilson, and Gabe Brown being waived. So that final roster spot went to Justin Champagnie. So, our guy Champagnie Poppy is out here getting that contract nod. And this, even though Josh Jackson swung my heart over early in the preseason, this is what I wanted as an outcome from the start of preseason. Even though it shifted between Jackson and Champagnie, I think the Raptors made the right decision. And I'm getting a little, I'm gonna play the balloons. I'm gonna play the balloons in celebration for Justin Champagnie because this is huge. He's a guy that's young. He has rebounding potential. His 3-point shot, while it didn't look good in his couple games of preseason, we know from last year, we got the balloons really rocking today, right? He's a capable 3-point shooter, and that mixed with his hustle, his energy, his rebounding ability, he's just a solid guy to have off the bench, and he could take a leap forward. And so I'm happy Justin Champagnie's in there. So unfortunate for those other guys getting cut, but the Raptors also made some other news, some other moves that will excite Raptors fans. And this is coming out for Exhibit 10 deals. The Raptors are bringing back David Johnson, who was obviously our 2-way guy last season, Christian Vital, Reggie Perry, Ryan Hawkins, all on Exhibit 10 deals. And on top of that, we also are bringing in Saben Lee. Now, a lot of these names might not sound that familiar to Raptors fans, but David Johnson's a guy that dealt with some injuries last year, was the guy that was drafted alongside Delano Banton in back-to-back picks. Kind of got memed because no one knew where he was in those hype Drake posts when he was posting Delano and Scotty. Where's David Johnson? But Johnson didn't have the strongest summer league by any means, didn't get a lot of opportunity last year, so I'm happy he's with the organization because he's definitely a guy with a chunk of potential, right? He could definitely be a guy that can knock down threes, play some defense. If he really takes a step up, he was a projected lottery pick there for a couple seasons, or before he went down with injury in college at one point. So, David Johnson's a good player. I'm happy he's still within our organization. Reggie Perry's a guy who was with the 905, been involved with the team. He was in our training camp last season, so I really like his game, a big man that can rebound and shoot. Reggie Perry's a good dude, and we also have Saben Lee, who's a guy that Blake Murphy wasn't in the initial chunk of reports there. Ryan Hawkins, actually, I'll touch on him before because that's the guy in Summer League, if you guys remember, that was splashing down some threes. So, it's nice to have some big, long centers that can put up some buckets in a hurry, right, to have within your system. So he's back there, and Vital, scorer, right, effective slasher guy. So we have 4 guys there, but one guy that kind of excites me is Saben Lee. as Blake Murphy sort of put there, another Exhibit 10 contract. And for people that don't know, Exhibit 10 contracts are guys that are brought in, usually cut immediately and brought down to the 905. I probably should have addressed that early. My apologies on that front. But Saben Lee is a dude that is, I think, a really cool piece to have within our system. He's an extremely athletic guard, played for the Detroit Pistons for a couple seasons. Not the greatest three-point shooter, but he can slash. He's more of a score-first PG that plays defense and sort of fits, that smaller Kyle Lowry, Fred VanVleet-esque mold of a Raptors point guard. So he definitely has some potential. All these guys with the 905, they have that potential to jump forward on the team. Obviously, the development projects we've had within that system have been great for this Raptors team. Siakam's gone through there. Fred VanVleet's gone through there. Norman Powell's played in the G League. DeLon Wright, Jakob Poeltl. Pretty well every young guy that we had that grew through our system at least spent some time down in the G League. Chris Boucher, Lorenzo Brown, who's G League MVP at one point. So definitely cool to have as much potential talent as possible that could be groomed to real full-time Toronto Raptors guys in the future. So good stuff on Masai Ujiri. I thought he brought in a nice crop of guys for the Raptors 905 this season. And I'll say it once again, sucks for DJ Wilson and Josh Jackson. We kind of knew Gabe Brown's probably going to be, he was on an Exhibit 10 contract, I believe, in training camp regardless. So he was expected to go down to 905. But unfortunate for those guys, they didn't make the team, but I think they went in the right direction with Justin Champagnie. But talking all this contracts, we got to dive into the big names on this Toronto Raptors team. Our two All-Stars, Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam, contract extension update. Now, Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam are two guys that we want, at least most Raptors fans want to have in this organization for long-term time, long-term tenure with the Raptors squad. So their contract extensions, even though they have a couple years left guaranteed on their deals, right? It's a big deal, right? We want to have these deals done early. And pull up the situation here now. Eric Koreen's essentially breaking it down, saying that the deadline for Siakam and Fred VanVleet extensions are tonight. But if Fred VanVleet opts out after this season, then he'll become extension eligible once as he's leading up to free agency. Siakam will be extension eligible again this next offseason if there is no deal. So Fred VanVleet can become a free agent at the end of this season. He signed that contract a few seasons ago, right? So Fred VanVleet with his player option, he's probably gonna turn down the player option. He wants to bet on himself, see if he can get a better deal, all that sort of stuff. But I guess he'll turn it down based on the contract the Raptors offer him. But regardless of how you feel about Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, I think everyone on this Raptors fandom don't want them to walk for nothing, right? We don't want them leaving in free agency just for no returns, right? Two all-star guys, regardless if you're high on them or low on them, you could at least get some value back, right? And that's just for the pure Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam haters. I'm of the camp, I want these two guys on this team long-term, unless we can flip them for an absolute stud of a superstar. But, two guys that have been with the organization, have won NBA championships, embody Raptors culture, and, right, want to be here. They want to be on this team, right? It makes sense to pay them, bring them back in. But the real reason that I want them, brought back into this organization, extended earlier than sooner rather than later, is because the cap is going up. It's continuously rising. So for people that aren't familiar with how the salary cap works, there's a limit to where you can be paying players until the point where you end up having to pay severe luxury tax. So the Raptors have only been in the luxury tax once over the past, I don't have the exact numbers, but rarely do the Raptors just splurge into the luxury tax if we're not just a championship contending team. We did it the year we won the NBA championship. So, our contract situation matters. We're not the Golden State Warriors throwing bags out to people left, right, and center. So contracts matter. But some might say, okay, so it makes sense to have flexibility in the future. Yes, that is the case. But when the cap is going up, right? When that limit to where the luxury tax mark hits, I'm trying to put it in layman's terms, but I'm absolutely butchering it. But basically, with the cap going up, if you can pay Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam at rates that sort of match this current cap, and then it goes up higher than you expect, you can get these guys on some pretty bargains of contracts, right, in the future. So I think the Raptors should just pay the guys, regardless if you want them on the team or not. You see how it all plays out. You control their future rather than them potentially holding an off-season hostage where you don't know if they're coming back. They might want to leave, all this sort of stuff. right? I say we just pay our superstars, figure out a way to extend them, and worry about the cap situation in the future, because with the cap rising, pay them now at our current rates and we'll be all good. So that's my take. Pay Fred VanVleet. Pascal Siakam still has 2 years left on his deal, so it's not as urgent. But Fred VanVleet, with his potential free agency looming next season, he said he loves being here, so I wouldn't expect him to flee or anything like that. But I'd like to see him get paid. I'd like to see those guys be locked in long term. But the next thing we're discussing is a guy that has won over a lot of Raptors fans during the preseason. That's Christain Koloko, playing in the G League this season. Now, what is this? A lot of people are saying, because Koloko looks like a legitimate rotation player for this Raptors team. His ability to block shots, be an anchor on the defensive end, be a lob threat for guys like Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., who are driving lanes, Scotty Barnes to throw it up to when the defense helps. Right? He seems like a guy that fits a definite need for this Raptor squad and seems like he'll be able to play it effectively. So what's happened with Christain Koloko in the G League? Now, this is all stemming from a Nick Nurse quote where he essentially told the media that he expects Christain Koloko to have some time in the Raptors 905. And he pointed out that there's a difference between 40 minutes with the Raptors 905 and 15 versus versus 15 with the big group, with the big squad. And this all makes sense. Right. As much as I was drumming the Precious propaganda last season, as much as hype as I've thrown on to Delano Banton and stuff, I don't think Precious played a lot of minutes down in the G League and stuff. But the development of getting all those touches, right, getting the basketball in your hands, being able to work on your game, right, possession after possession against NBA level talent, lower tier NBA talent in the G League. Right, not only gives players a confidence boost, but it lets them work on things that might not necessarily be allowed by Coach Nurse. Coach Nurse gives Raptors players a pretty green light to try out different things and show their bag a little bit. But obviously, Christain Koloko, if he's trying to be working on weird post fadeaways or something, his jump shot and all that, right? We want him to be efficient, so let him work out the kinks and all that stuff. Develop his game in the G League and play simultaneously, right? We've seen Raptors at times have guys play one in the same day, a game in the G League, and then come back up with the big group. And that's the nice thing about having the 905, right? 50-minute drive away from the Scotiabank Arena, right? So it's cool having the Raptors, a G League team right in the heart of the city. So don't think this means Christain Koloko is not going to be with the big squad. Don't think it means he's not going to be getting a lot of minutes. So interesting stuff there. The final thing we're talking about is Fred VanVleet speaks on his leadership style with Toronto. Now, this is a bit of a meme. Fred VanVleet was a little bit candid about how he leads this Raptor squad, coming out with a quote. I'll show it out here. Fred VanVleet on his leadership style. I try to lead by example, and if that fails, I cuss. Pretty blunt, pretty straightforward for Fred VanVleet on that point. So you love seeing that. But folks, let me know what you guys think of all this Toronto Raptors news. You guys are the best for making this far. Check out the Instagram, the TikTok, the Twitter, all that cool stuff. Anyways, season's just around the corner. Subscribe to the channel. Helps us out big time. We kind of stagnated on subs. It's kind of what happens this time of year anyways. But it'd be cool to have 26K subs heading into the actual season. So maybe we can get a giant jump. Everyone that made it to the end of this video that's not subscribed, I'm sure we could get there. But anyways, you guys are the best. I'm signing out. Cheers.